Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Yes.
How you guys doing?
Oh man, David, this is my good friend Derek Hansen, my podcast partner. We've been married for about 2.5 years already, doing this together.
Feels like
Well,
more.
congratulations, you too.
Thank you. I'm so psyched for you guys to meet because Derek is Derek's a strength coach, but he's really has become known as a world-renowned running mechanics coach, and I've learned more from Derek than I could even tell you. And Derek, David is the most insane distance runner I've ever seen. I mean, but one of the world class, obviously. And we ran the other day, and I'm sorry, David just kind of jogged, and I ran 4 miles, and we just kind of talked a little bit. And as I was talking to David, I'm like, why the hell is he not on D&D? Like, his stories are so interesting. I think first off, David, where you've traveled in this world is remarkable and what you've seen, but some of the stuff that you have done from a distance running standpoint, I mean, I've never even heard of. It's like it's just, I'm smiling talking about. So I think let's just keep it a loose conversation today and have some fun.
No, without a doubt, man. Dude, super stoked to be here, and thank you so much for that great intro. Thanks so much, dude. I feel like I have a lot to live up to now, and it's great to meet you as well, Derek. I'm super stoked to chat with you and pick your mind a little bit.
Likewise. I just want to know what goes on in your head when you do these long runs.
Dude, it's a mystery even to myself. I feel like, no, I feel like every now and then, man, I feel like it's a mixture of just really like thinking about like even my like day-to-day process of like whatever I'm doing, or sometimes just zoning out and kind of running for a while. And I feel like 10 miles go by, 15 miles go by, and something will pop up along the way, or like you'll see something and I feel like you get kind of like shocked back into what you're doing and where you're at. But it's definitely cool. It's a fun process, and I feel like all the ebbs and flows of running that long is definitely like super interesting.
But I mean, you have to. Is this something that you've had to develop throughout the years? I mean, or is this just something someone's built with? Because I enjoy running, but sometimes 4 miles, 5 miles. Like if I get a good playlist going, I'm gone. Right? It's like you can just get lost. But a lot of times, most people are like, it's boring. It's like you just get into this process of like, all right, how long have I been going? And you just kind of get lost in this other world right now. Is that typically what great runners do, or did you have to work on that, or can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, without a doubt, man. I mean, I feel like it's definitely something that gets developed a little bit over time, but overall as well, I think it's something that I enjoyed quite a bit, even when I first started running. Just like the process of running, kind of like pushing my body and just being out there, especially just like when you're getting like a lot of miles in with like a good buddy or a good friend. I feel like it's just a really great time, and time will just like fly by. But overall, I think it's something that's kind of like trained and learned, because a few times, even I just ran in May, I ran a race called the Speed Project, which is a 340 mile race from LA to Las Vegas. And someone asked me actually to do that race when they were cooking up the idea like 2 or 3 years ago. And I was running like 50-mile races at the time, and I had run a few 50s, and I was like, felt like a zombie at the finish line. I feel like I was like not like enjoying it as much as I am now. And I was like, there's no way that I'm ever running 300 miles. I was like, that sounds like so beyond what I want to do, because 50 miles is so painful right now. And so, yeah, I feel like over the years, it's definitely just kind of developed. And I think my body has kind of evolved with the miles. And I would say the mindset has followed along with that.
What about something like, I know Don and I talked about this when he referred to that run, like just dealing with the heat. And that's always a concern, even at the Olympics with the marathon and the heat and all that. Like, do you have strategies that you can give people guidelines around?
Yeah, without a doubt, man. So basically, luckily enough, I had a fantastic crew the whole time. So I had a team full of people in an RV and a pickup truck following me basically through the desert the entirety of the journey. So I had like an outside shower that I was using. I had like this big plastic bucket that I was basically like getting into to sit in for, it wasn't filled with ice because it would have been, I feel like a little bit too much of a shock to the body, but it was like filled with like cool water. And I was able to get in there and kind of like sit in there and cool down every now and then. And also, I need to look this up because I feel like I've talked about it a handful of times. Maybe you guys can teach me a little bit on this, but basically, whenever I'm running in super hot conditions as well, of course, bringing down my body temperature makes sense when I'm like sitting in this like water. But also, I feel like it's like almost like rejuvenating to my muscles. So I think it's like almost like my skin and my muscles are kind of like absorbing the water a little bit too, for my body being a little bit more dehydrated from being in these extreme hot conditions. Because after I basically get out of that, my legs feel a lot more fresh. My body feels a lot more fresh overall. So that's what I think is kind of like going on. But anytime I'm really running in these like super hot conditions, it's really about if I can sit into water for a little while, it helps like tremendously. But also just cooling myself down along the way with like just pouring water on myself, making sure I was like able to hop in and out of the RV every now and then to like cool down a little bit. But yeah, lucky enough, if I didn't have my crew there, I would have definitely made it probably like 50 miles and passed out in the desert and died.
I mean, I'm wondering also, Derek, I'm wondering if you like, do you think it'd be even better if he maybe dumped like some salt in the water or dumped like some magnesium in the water or something for like his body and skin to absorb? Because I never even thought about that. I never even thought about anyone running 350 miles, let alone through Death Valley. I mean, you ran through Death Valley. I mean, how hot did it get there?
Yeah, man, I think so that's what I was actually joking with the crew about. So we came through, I think it was in Baker, California. So it's like basically
I
right.
know where it is. I just drove through there.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's like right on the edge of Death Valley. And
there's nothing, by the way, like I need to jump in right now. I've done the LA to Vegas drive
yeah.
6 times because my in-laws are from Vegas and we drove this in July. We
Did
drove.
you have the AC on?
We had the AC on. It was 110, 115 degrees outside at least. And oh my God, it took us 4.5 hours. And when I say it's as far as the eye can see, you have no depth of perception there. Like you do not know if that mountain you're looking at is 50 miles away, 25 miles away, 100 miles away. You have no idea. Like it's scary stuff.
It's so true. Actually, in the exact moment as well, there's like a big basin. I was like running kind of parallel almost to the road and the highway out there on this like dirt road in the desert. And I saw Baker when I was entering Baker from that section. And I was like, oh, I'll run across this giant like salt basin. It was like the desert. I was like, this is probably like 5 or 6 miles. And it ended up being like almost like 20 miles. And I was out there like dying. And me and my friend, he had like a bunch of vests and water bottles on. And they were like so hot just from like us having them on our body. They were like scorching hot, like someone like put it like on the stove or something. So it was nuts. But also where Baker is, that's where the world's largest thermometer is. So then that's what I was telling my crew. I was like, this is how you know the weather is like super terrible when they're like big site is like, it's so hot here that we measure it with this giant thermometer. But I think it was around 115, 120 degrees when I was out there.
I remember, Derek, I remember driving through there and I looked at my wife and I'm like, what does someone do if like they get a flat tire out here? Like it's like
They die.
nothing around. It's crazy. But I never even heard 350 miles. So that was that technically the most challenging run you've ever had to do? Or I mean, you were mentioning another run recently called the Leadville 100.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man, that's the one. I think honestly, the good thing about actually running so far, so many days in a row, I feel like your body really gets into sync with like what's going on. And I was actually talking to my girlfriend Molly about this. I was like, it's pretty funny. Each time I start 100 miles, I feel like I have like a good sense in my head, of course, what it's going to be. It's definitely going to be challenging, but I kind of forget like how much pain sometimes you go through or discomfort. at certain times. But running like 300 miles or a distance that extreme, it's like that first day I feel like is out of the way, and you're kind of like, oh my God, I remember exactly what this is. And then almost the days following it, at least to me, they don't seem as bad, which sounds surprising, because, or at least mentally, you're like, oh, like I know what this is gonna feel like. I know this discomfort. I know different ways to like manage my body. And this is kind of like what I'm gonna go do moving forward. And a lot of the people that were in that race as well, there was, I think, three or four finishers for the LA to Las Vegas run.
Wait a second, only 3 or 4 people finished it?
Yeah.
Out of how many? How many people tried to run it?
I think solo that tried to start it was around like 10. But yeah, a lot of people were not like into like trying to do this feat.
Well, it sounds insane. I think Jillian Kennedy, did Jillian Kennedy go out for that?
Yeah, man, she was out there cruising around in her van.
Well, she's also she's an employee of ON, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go watch Kilgore run across the desert. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like what do you mean across the? She's like, Kilgore's running, and David's been a friend of mine for a while. We shot some fun content in the city, etc. But she's like, Kilgore is gonna run from Vegas to LA, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't even understand. Like, what do you mean? Like, someone's following you? Yeah, we have a team going. I'm like, that doesn't, like, I almost was like, that's impossible. Like, I didn't think anyone could actually physically do that in 4 days. Because you used to hear for years, like guys like Dean Carnazzi, like running a marathon every day for 30 days. Back then, I'm like, yeah, that's insane. I mean, this sounds way crazier to me to accumulate 350 miles in a little over 3 days, 4 days. But in that type of heat, it doesn't make any sense. Because can you talk about the Leadville 100 a little bit? Because I think I want everyone to hear this experience.
Oh, for sure, man, without a doubt. Yeah, actually out in the desert, man, I feel like I was sort of becoming like a Mad Max character. I was like slowly becoming like part of the desert. My hair was like fraying up. I was like super tan. I had like lotion like all over my skin like all the time.
How much weight did you lose? Did you lose weight, or were you kind of all right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, man. Yeah, I should have weighed myself before and after. It would have been a great testament to it. But yeah, it's pretty funny. Like a few of these, I'll have to send you some of the photos. When I first did my first 100-mile run, I did it in Florida in 2020. And the pictures of my body kind of like almost like shrinking a little bit over like the entirety of the run. Yeah, was wild, honestly. And it was when in Florida, I ran in like 15 or 16 hours or something like that. And but at the time, actually, I got stopped by the police for being on this like ranch, like in the middle of the night, like running on this trail, the last tail end of the 100-mile. And my crew was at the gate where I would like ran into the trails at, and they're like, no, like David's like out there, he's like running 100 miles. This guy's running 100 miles for like charity and like all this stuff. And the guys are like, kind of like, there's no way, this is not true. And I basically like came like out of this like cow field. I'm like super dirty and like muddy, and I'm like emaciated.
Look like Forrest Gump running across the
and they're like, oh my God, this guy's running 100 miles. They're like,
oh my
what,
God.
what's your walk around weight when you just walk around normal?
Probably about I would say it probably fluctuates between like 135, 140.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you're talking about these situations where it's hot. Have you been in situations where it's really cold and you've had to adjust and acclimate there? Because wasn't there an ultra marathon in China where like people died from exposure?
Dude, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, they're up in the mountains, and there's like a crazy storm that rolled through. I think it was like hailstorm and like all this stuff. But yeah, extreme cold conditions. And I've done a few ultras. Not, I would say probably not into that realm. But probably it's been around like 15, 20 degrees. But I'm definitely, it's probably my Florida roots overall. I'm definitely a Florida boy, true at heart. And I love the heat. I would take 120 degrees over 20 degrees even any day. I hate being cold.
So do you find your body? So you obviously find your body performs a lot better in the heat. I mean, it sounds like a stupid statement there, but some people might feel differently because the cool weather might counterbalance all the heat going on in their body. Like I've actually heard people say like, no, I like running the cold, I breathe easier, etc. But you're the other way around.
For sure, man. Yeah, and I think even competing against other people, I think my edge definitely is in the heat. And I feel like I perform pretty well in the heat. Overall, though, still I feel like almost like fall type of weather. I would probably hit my like fastest times and stuff, probably like just because I feel like the way your body's like processing everything is probably a little bit more like efficient, like in that like 50 to like 70-degree weather. But competitively wise, I think I can usually like outdo quite a bit of people like in the heat, and definitely my forte. I kind of enjoy it actually a little bit.
Do you do any monitoring with technology, like obviously heart rate? Somebody was wrote an article about glucose, real-time glucose monitoring for like endurance athletes. Anything fancy like that where you're monitoring biometrics?
Man, I need to. Honestly, I haven't done anything too like in depth like that. Just a lot of stuff with like GPS tracking and stuff like that, and like some like live heart rates off of that. But I actually just did something right before. I'll have to send it over to you guys. It's actually like I think it's like pretty cool. I haven't seen anything like this, but basically they injected my body with a bunch of dye, and they did like a 3D like heart scan. So I have like a live picture of my heart, and they basically checked everything out to see like how it was like processing, like how efficiently I process oxygen. I took like a max VO2 test and all this different stuff. But that's kind of like the extent that I've done to it, but I haven't done any of like the glucose like tests or anything like that.
Derek, and I asked David, what was your VO2 again?
I think my max VO2 is around 80.
80, which is pretty nuts. And I just Derek, I just redid mine, and I was excited. I think I was at like 54 or 55. I ended up redoing mine. I'm like, oh wow, that's really good. I'm like, what was yours? He's like 80. I'm like, 80? I don't know, it went that high. What are you
Yeah, I think the
talking about?
best ever is like 82 or 84 from a cross
No,
country skier.
didn't you say it was like it was higher, David? I asked you this the other day.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. I think it was like high 80s or something like that from like a cross country skier. Like I feel like their threshold, man, to process oxygen, they're just like able to redline forever. It's like crazy.
Is there
That's
any
amazing.
like, I got to ask this question, but for these events, are there any drug testing to make sure people aren't, blood doping or doing EPO or things like that?
Yeah, man, for sure. For a lot of like the larger trail racing and stuff like that, it's still like under USADA. And so there is like drug testing and stuff. But the race I did do from LA to Vegas, it's a little bit more, I feel like it's like an unsanctioned kind of vibe. So their whole thing is like there's like no rules. Not saying that there's like no drug rules, but basically it's kind of like you have to like map out your own thing, and it's not as like regulated, I would say, as like a regular race. But the race I just did that Don mentioned in Leadville is definitely one of the most iconic 100 miles in the world, and there's like drug testing at events and stuff like that.
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about that race a bit?
Oh yeah, man. So
This is fun.
it was brutal. I was actually, I mean, I'm still super excited that I did it, but I feel like leading up to it, I was like, this is going to be great. I've been like training so hard. I was out in Colorado for about 3 weeks, getting acclimated to it, because the whole race basically takes place above 10,000 feet. And it starts and ends in Leadville, Colorado. And you climb about 15,000 feet throughout the race and go over some, I think close up to 13,000 feet throughout the race as well. But yeah, training out there for a few weeks and doing some longer runs, like up to like 6 hours and stuff like that, up at that altitude. I was like pretty prepped and pretty excited to give a go at it. But honestly, like, that race, I was like, this race is a bear, especially coming in the last like 3 to 5 miles. I was like, wow, like I was like processing it a little bit. I was like, my body was like so tired. I was like running with one of my pacers. I was like, how far do we have to go? And I was just like dying up this like flat road on this small incline, kind of like with just like a little bit to go. And but yeah, it was nuts, man. And just like the exposure of being like up on top of those mountains, and just like the different weather conditions throughout the day. Basically I had a pack with like a bunch of different like gear on, and it started off and I think it was like 28 or 30 degrees in the morning. There was actually like a
Wow.
light dusting of snow on some of the peaks like around the area, and I was like, dude, it's like August right now. I was like, it's snowing.
What
And
is
I'm like,
that is so bizarre. So you ran that race in 19 hours and 50 minutes
19 hours and 50 minutes. Mhm.
and you finished eighth out of 1,000. But out of the 1,000 that entered, 700 of them dropped off.
Yeah, about, yeah, I think there was like around like 300 or so finishers. But yeah, the race is always brutalizing, man. And I definitely should have took that, I feel like, into consideration looking at those results before I jumped in. But it was awesome, man. It was such a journey, and such a cool time.
That sounds
I
like
gotta,
baseball stats, Don. Like if you're batting 300, 70% are not making it. That's crazy.
I mean, it should, I mean, but to think that at that level, this is the thing that fascinates me, because like a casual runner is not going to turn around and be like, oh, let's go run the Leadville 100 today. Like they're not really saying that. Like it's one thing to run a marathon, but then you got to multiply that now times 4. And then you're multiplying it by 4, but you're also putting it in one of the most difficult altitudes. And we're not running flat land here. Like these are hills. These are hills. So to just assume the caliber of runner coming in there is not someone who's like, oh, let's do this distance run. It's a well-known run. Let's go have some fun with the family. Like these are accomplished runners. These are probably the best 1,000, in the world, whatever it might be. And to think that 700 of them had to tap out, to me is it's almost a bit scary. Derek and I talk a lot about recovery.
Mhm.
What was that process for you? Can you talk to me about when you were done with that race? What happened to you that night? What happened in the next few days, or did you just bounce back like no problem?
Oh, without a doubt, man. Yeah. When I crossed the finish line, I'll have to send you guys that photo.
Love to
But
see it.
my girlfriend Molly was there, and some of my friends. But definitely, I feel like Molly being my close confidant. When I crossed the finish line, I basically was just like, I was like running the last bit of it with trekking poles, and I was just like slumped over, like leaning on her, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe yeah, I just did that. That was like insane. But honestly, man, I was pretty thrashed. For, I mean, it doesn't sound like that long, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, is but for about 24 hours, I was like really beat up. And I was like, wow, like I did like a 300-mile race. I've done like a few other 100-mile runs, and I was like, this thing definitely took it to me. But yeah, I was definitely like chafed up. I was like banged up. My muscles were like, oof, like screaming a little bit and really sore. But basically, yeah, man, I like laid low. Really, I feel like your body, at least my body, speaking from my personal experience only. But I imagine other people have a similar thing. But anytime I do any kind of, I guess, extreme endurance running, I feel like my body almost goes into like a fight or flight mode. And like the next day, people are like, oh, you must have like slept so well. You must have like knocked out for like 14 hours. But honestly, man, it's usually like I fall asleep for like 2 or 3 hours, like super hard. And then I wake up and my body's like, what are you doing? Like, let's go. We're ready to get it going again.
I would
And
expect that. I would expect that your whole clock is just thrown off. Everything, even nutritionally. Like most people are like, are you starving? Like my guess would be you're probably trying to eat, but you really can't. Like, who knows? You're probably all over the place.
yeah, 100%, man. And basically for, again, like almost like probably 24 to 48 hours, anytime I do anything like that, like I'm not hungry at all. And then it's like 2 days later or a day later, I'm like, oh my God, I can like eat everything in the house. Like I cannot stop eating. I was like, but this is great. I love it. Like,
Yeah, it's a good feeling. Oh my God.
You talk about like these uphills, but I always worry about downhills, especially for long durations. What kind of injuries have you had to deal with, and how do you manage that?
yeah, man. I mean, I would say I'm extremely lucky in that department and the recovery department. I would say mostly that's what I tell most people. They're like, oh, like they're like, you're like pretty good at running or whatever. Like, and I'm like, honestly, if I have anything going for me, it's like, I can just like, I feel like get thrown through a wall and I'm like pretty good. And so I was like, I think it's just like my longevity and like being able to do it for so long without really being injured from the sport. I've only ever had one real injury when I lived in Florida my entire life growing up. And I went to Colorado for school for about 3 years. And when I first got out there, I got a stress fracture. But ultimately, I think it was like something to do with vitamin D levels, because my vitamin D levels like went down quite a bit when I was in Colorado, and I was getting like the most vitamin D in the ever, like because I lived in Florida and I was like outside all the time. But other than that, I haven't had any real specific injuries like from like actually caused by running. And then I've had like a handful of injuries that are just like injuries that I've like taken on the trail. Like I scalped myself one time on a trail.
Oh God.
And I had to get like 18 staples in my head. I fell off a ledge, like an 8-foot ledge. I was running up on this like really icy and snowy mountain with these like crampons, and I slid off this ledge, and I only fell about like 8 feet, but my leg got pulled behind me, and I landed in the snow, which was great. But I landed on one rock, like in the snow, and I'm pretty sure I fractured my leg, and I didn't realize it. And I went and ran 2 marathons back-to-back weekends. The first one went great. The second one, in the middle of it, I broke my leg, and I was pretty sure that it was caused from that fall, because I had this like lump on the side of my leg for like 3 weeks from the fall on the mountain. But just there's been a few handful of things like that, but actually nothing caused, I would say, like physically by like the action of running.
I have a question for both of you, actually, Derek and David, about hill running. Like I've heard mixed things about running hills in your training. D, it's like, is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Is it too stressful on your Achilles? Like, what's the verdict on that? What's your guys' opinion?
I mean, again, it depends, and I'll let David jump in too. But I mean, I'm working with people who sprint up hills, and we're very careful about the grade for training purposes. You don't want it too steep for the reasons you said, and even simple things like you don't want them to slip. So I'm very careful. I usually use like a 5 degree or like 9 or 10% grade for everything that I do, which is like a wheelchair ramp. But anything steeper, I'm like, I don't know, the benefit isn't quite
Like
there.
the juice ain't worth the squeeze, right? You're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, all right, it might be too much. David, what about with you? Like, do you find yourself, because you're also kind of an anomaly, and I would assume that you have to train at high grades because your races are going to be at high grades. It's not like you can't train in a 5% grade and then go run the Leadville, because I'm sure at times you can put your hand out and touch the pavement. You feel like you're running up so steep. So is there are there things that you have to think about with your training, or is it just this adaptability where you're like, no, I got to do stuff at all different grades. I rely now on my recovery. I rely on my resiliency and the ability to be able to adapt to those different terrains and those different pitches.
Yeah, man, I would say mostly the latter. I would say mostly I rely like on my resiliency and like adaptability to the different terrains. I would definitely fall in line probably with like Derek if I was like specifically like training somebody. I think it definitely has to do like with the person and everything like that. And if depending on like how much like hill work they've like put it like in their life, or like if they do have like any kind of like ongoing like injuries, or because I feel like running uphill a lot is definitely like a lot of explosive movements, and it's building a lot of strength, like hamstrings, like glutes and stuff like that. And definitely like affecting those, like putting a little bit more tension on those Achilles. But yeah, for me overall, I feel like I've, especially like training out in Leadville, I was like power hiking like a ton, and going up these real steep grades. And even here in New York City, where I primarily live, is I have a Nordic treadmill, and basically it goes up to a 40% grade. And so really just like stressing my body in those different type of ways to make sure it's like prepped and ready for some of these like really extreme types of races.
Can we talk,
D, go ahead.
Don? Don, can
Yeah,
we
go ahead,
talk a
D.
bit about shoes? And I think
yeah.
that's a big thing for me is like, obviously you have minimalist shoes and then you have the shoes that look like you got pillows underneath your feet. And you know, the people like different things and they always say, well, it's comfort. But when you guys are selecting shoes, and you can talk specifically about the shoes you wear, is there something that you're looking for in terms of whether it's support or weight or, you know, the
Well,
way it's set
I'm
up?
gonna jump in first because David selects my sneakers, so it's like perfect. So I'm like, I couldn't be happier. So he literally just sent me a nice little gift box of like all these great sneaks. And what's interesting about it is I am finding certain sneakers I start getting a little bit more partial to, like when I'm running on the turf or running on the track. And then there's other things that I might like for more distance running. So I'm going to let David jump in on that, but I kind of figure it out on my own. But I know David and I are both with On. I mean, and what they're doing as a company, I think is absolutely remarkable. But David, take it from there.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Yeah, so I totally fall exactly in line with what Don was saying. Basically, I think it's different strokes for different folks. Definitely a shoe for everybody, and definitely a shoe for each kind of like activity. So kind of depending, like sometimes if I know I'm going out for like a shorter run, maybe it's going to be like on some more like aggressive terrain. I would wear something like it's like a Cloud Venture Peak. So basically it's like a little bit more of an aggressive, a little bit tighter, low profile trail running shoe. But if I'm kicking around, like running around the city all the time, I would wear something more in line with like the CloudStratus, which is like a double layered cushion shoe. It goes with your foot like really, really nicely, gives you like really comfortable wide ride, and gives you like that extra cushion for running on like roads and like less soft surfaces. So I would say depending kind of like the area I'm running in, the terrain I'm running on, and also kind of I guess like even the event that I'm running in, I think is the name of the game.
But
Well,
you've
what are
never
we?
been, oh, go ahead, Don.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Dave.
Well,
Go
you've
ahead,
never
bud.
been like one of these barefoot running, like, you know, enthusiasts where, you know, there's that ESPN documentary about the Mexican village that, you know, ran around in bare feet and they found out like, hey, they just can't afford shoes.
No, and I think that's definitely I was actually thinking about that when you were first asking the question. I'm glad you brought that back up. But basically what I think as well, so for someone like me, I've been running now for so long, and my body, I feel like it understands everything that's going on. I don't know, I think it's even pretty funny just being around like the running realm, because you'll see people that have aged in running that I like know of that are like famous runners from like back in the day, and they still have like pretty like stick legs, but now they have like a little bit of a belly, and you see them run and you're like, oh, there's no way this is like some random old guy walking down the street. And you'll watch him run and they're like biomechanics, their efficiency is like so effortlessly, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy still has like beautiful form. And it's super cool to see. And basically I think it's over the years, like your body and your biomechanics definitely, like I feel like, you know, like develop, and like it starts to be like, okay, we get what's going on, we got to be as efficient as possible to keep doing this, to stay healthy, to keep moving forward. But at the beginning stages of running, as well, like when you're first getting into the sport, I do think it is beneficial to wear some probably like lower profile shoes, because you're probably gonna heel strike less, you're gonna land a little bit more on your forefoot, your toes, and it's gonna probably strengthen up your feet a little bit more too, and your lower extremities, your legs and everything, to prep your body for the work if you continuing on like this journey of running for your life. But now, like again, like I would say, like people like I guess myself that have been running for like too long to count, I think mostly like I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna wear a more high cushion shoe because my body's a little bit more beat up and I'm running so many miles like on the road, and my form and my economy is like already there, that I don't have to like worry about it as much.
I went through a big minimalistic craze early on with running, and I remember I was running in like Vibrams, and then I was running on the treadmills barefooted. And yeah, I do believe that, you know, I never jumped into it. Like you would always hear some bad there'll always be some bad feedback. People be like, oh, he blew out his Achilles tendon. I'm like, he doesn't run. He ran 8 miles barefooted. What do you expect to happen? Like stupid. But I really do believe there is something to be said with this minimalistic training. And but with that being said, there's specific types of training I like to do barefooted. But then like when I'm going out and I'm trying to run and I'm trying to perform, like I do find, the vehicle I'm putting on my feet is really, I mean, even from a psychological standpoint, when you're putting on that new sneaker and you're running, it just feels differently and it looks good. It's like that whole confidence factor. You're running, you might feel a little tighter. You might, you and I were talking about, that foot striking the other day on how when you start feeling really efficient and light, your feet, and Derek, I mean, I learned these terms from Derek, but your feet just feels like they're exploding off the pavement. And when you kind of get into that rhythm and you start running, you can just find this rhythm that I feel like is so much more, efficient and actually a lot more enjoyable. And then you start getting into that zone. And then I feel like in time, you start training this a little bit more to be able to go out and to be able to put more time in. Like I was running a lot last winter and I remember I was getting on the True Form, Derek and I love, we both have True Forms, and I was getting on it early on and I was like, all right, this is a little monotonous. And within like a month and a half, I remember being like an hour into my runs being like, where'd the time go? And then I realized it's like, yeah, it's just, you got to train this. If you're not used to going out and hitting the pavement or putting that time in, yeah, it's going to get difficult. But like everything else, you have to train this as well.
Yeah, I was gonna also ask about just other training. Don and I are always talking about weight training and stuff. How much of that do you do, David, or do you just run?
Yeah, man, I actually just started doing a little bit more of that. Shout out to my boy Don over there, man. He's been hooking me up and tossing me some workouts and instructing me on how to build some extra strength and power with my runs. And I think it's been super, super beneficial, man. I mean, even I was doing a lot of it leading up to Leadville, and I feel like it was like night and day. I know that I'm not too old in the grand scheme of things, but definitely over the last year, and I feel like I put so many miles and so many years of running on my body that I've definitely come to realize, even I feel like at my age, that like over the last, like I said, handful of years, I'm like, oh, like I'm waking up sometimes, I'm like, oh, this area's a little sore. Like I'm not as like fresh when I was like 15 years old, when I was like every day, I'm like, I'm gonna jump out of bed and like sprint as fast as I can until I die, and so I think having these different techniques and like making sure focus on like stretching, recovery, and then also of course like strength has like definitely like paid big dividends recently. And I'm pretty stoked to continue to do it, because I think all of the years again like accumulated, I feel like has like broken down my body a bit, and I feel like I'm having a lot more like almost like rejuvenation and a lot more pep in my step as of recently. So super stoked on it.
Yeah, I'm psyched to see where you go with that. I mean, when I was putting together David's program, it was really something where I told him, I said, this should add value to your running. This shouldn't take over your running. Like, I'm not interested in you going in and working out 5-6 days a week. This is like 2 to 3 days a week, and making sure the workouts last maybe 20 to 30 minutes, and unilateral work, and just getting that hip to have to stabilize, and working the body from a joint by joint approach from the ground up, and starting to add some load, but keeping it at about 80%. We're not bodybuilding. We don't need to be taking stuff to failure, or making sure that your training sessions are taking away from your performance. And and I'm psyched to see what happens in the next year. But David, I want to switch gears for a second. We have to talk about the Empire State Building Run, which is coming up. I mean, you've run it several times. I've run it 3 times. This will be my 4th. But can you talk about the charity? Can you talk about what we're doing with its equity? Is it Equity Partners? What's the name of the company again?
Equity Design. Yes, sir.
Equity Design. Sorry, and On Running. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, without a doubt, man. So super stoked on this. So Don and I are partnering back up, and super amped on this because it's for such a awesome cause. So Equity Design basically is a program that brings health and wellness like professionals to the greater New York area, like the uptown area of the city. and basically educates the teachers throughout the schools in those areas. And then in return, the teachers have the knowledge to basically pass down to the students and uplift the youth and the new generation. So they're educated about health and wellness, and hopefully are bringing that forth in their life and passing it down to generations and generations below them. So super, super amped about that. But Don and I are also writing a 6-week training program leading up to the Empire State Building run up. That'll be October 26th. And so this 6-week program is going to be for the general public to jump in, and we're encouraging everybody to make a donation to Equity Design to continue to promote what they're doing. But also we're offering this program to the teachers in the Equity Design program for free. So they're going to be able to train with Don and myself, prepping for the Empire State Building run. And then a handful of those teachers are going to be selected to actually run up the building with us on the 26th of October, which is going to be crazy. It's always definitely a barn burner getting to the top up there. And then the view at the top is out of control.
Yeah, man, just don't take the elevator down. Wait for me until I get up. I mean, you're gonna be, I mean, I know the world record's 9:33, and hopefully the door doesn't close on David, because I think he might give that time a run for its money. But we're gonna be running Sebastian Stan's coming in. We're bringing some of the Gym Mafia and Tone and Shim, and we might have some other special guests coming in too. I'm not at liberty of being able to talk about that yet, but what a great cause, and I think what a great thing On Running's been doing with their whole Right to Run campaign. And this is really a company where I think, Derek, I'm blown away by the attention that they give back to the community, but I think their commitment to excellence and building a brand, how they handle their employees. I mean, I've been with the company now 4 years, and it's been, I mean, one of the coolest things I've been a part of probably ever.
Can you guys do like a video log where you guys like show yourself training, and you go hit some stairs at this building, and then we go to breakfast, we see what you guys eat before you run?
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I mean, David, I might have to come in the night before and just stay the night. We might have to go grab some dinner, and we might have to talk about, maybe I'll stay in a hotel or whatever. We could just, we could shoot some content and have some fun. But the race is incredible. I mean, I've done it several times, and the energy when you're going into the stairwell, and it's nothing like I didn't even train for it, but it's nothing like
you got to wear a camera when you do it, Don, this time.
I might throw the GoPro on my head and just just see me. Yeah, I'll put it on mic. You don't even need a mic. You're just gonna hear me like it's gonna be insane. But I'll be trying to chase David for the first 2 or 3 flights and then see him. But David, how'd you feel after that run when you did it last time?
Whew, I honestly wish that it was such a great workout, but it was really, really brutal. I was like, man, I wish I had access to this all the time to do this. I was like, I feel like I'd be so strong and so fit. But yeah, like I was like, this would be great. I hit like the first 10 floors. I was like, oh, fantastic, awesome. I hit like floor 25, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, how many more are we gonna go?
It's so different. It's 86 flights, right? I mean, it was 86 flights, and it's way different. Even doing the stairs, it's not the same thing. I mean, I like the stairs. I do them all the time. It's completely different. Like when the stairs are moving for you, and when you actually have to, like, once you start exploding off a step, it's like a ballistic. It's a plyometric. Like your body just, like, if you're not prepared for it, you just hit this wall. It's like, oh my God, I'm done. Like it's almost like, Derek, high rep squats or something like high rep jump squats. It's like when you start doing at a certain point, your legs are going to kick out. It's almost like that's the best way I can equivalent it to.
You should go run like the Oculus and just go around and around and up and down.
We tried doing it. Wasn't that at the what the hell was it? What did we try running up?
Touring around the city. Yeah, we tried to, but we had to like make an appointment or something. It was packed.
I'm like, we're running. What are you talking about making an appointment? Just let us go up. Well, it'll be down in a few minutes. That was the fun day David and I did. People can check that out on my YouTube page. But we did kind of like we met it On Running, and they fit me for sneakers, and they gave me a nice outfit. And next, David and I were like, want to check out the city? Like, let's go. And then we did a little sightseeing, and it was actually a fun day. We really ran around and kind of checked things out a little bit. It was fun dodging it. I mean, the best part, the highlight for me was when we started running through Times Square, and David's like, all right, man, like kind of try and keep up. And like he just started taking off, and then he's cutting cabs off, and cabs are like breaking. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm looking at the yellow light on 42nd Street, and David's like flying through it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get hit. I'm trying to fly through it. It's definitely an experience. I'm glad we documented. That's something that I like to go back to and check out down the road. But Derek, I know you definitely had a cool question about nutrition that I wanted you to dive in on.
Yeah, I read David's sort of bio on the on-site, and it sounded like you weren't overly neurotic about nutrition. Like you're not like weighing stuff and taking all these, precise preparations. It just sounds like, well, I go eat and then I go run. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, I would say as simple as it sounds, yeah, I would say pretty much, man. I wouldn't my diet overall, I wouldn't say is like insanely clean by any means, but I wouldn't say it's like overly like terrible in a sense either, like where I'm just like eating just like donuts 24/7. But yeah, I've tried like a few times like to I guess like eat like a little bit better or like healthier. And I mean, I probably could, I guess, if I put in a little bit more time to it. But I was like, oh, I'm gonna get like insanely like whatever, like, and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna eat like all this like salads and greens and like try all this stuff. And basically every time I ran into a wall, like with training, like 3 or 4 days, like down the road, which wasn't even that long. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just feel like super tired. I feel exhausted. And then I would just like eat like a whole chocolate cake. And I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm back.
I'm back to life.
I'm
Yeah,
back, baby.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what Michael Phelps talked about. That he actually got criticized for people were like, oh, he's putting junk calories in his body. I'm like, this guy's swimming 8 hours a day. He can't consume 12,000 calories from eating chicken, rice, and broccoli. Like it's not going to happen. Like the amount of, for me to eat that clean and get 4,000 calories in is ridiculously difficult. And you have to, I think from a performance standpoint, yeah, like you don't want to be eating donuts all day, but I really think like it doesn't, like make sure there are like some help, like some sauces on there, eat steaks, eat rice, eat pasta, eat veggies, like just eat things with substance. Like I wouldn't be worrying about, oh, I'm going to eat meat. Like if they're serving meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and some veggies, like to me, I think that's a nutritious and like very heavy, sticky meal that's going to be calorically dense. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I would assume that if you were trying to, if you want, like, they don't understand there's a cost of doing business here. Like once you start dropping body fat, and once you start really focusing on aesthetically getting that low, like it hinders performance. And I feel it, like running 4 miles with you on Monday. I felt it. Like that's 4 miles. 4 miles. You're running 100. Like, no, you're not going to eat like me. You freaking die. You'd be 110 pounds. You'd be done. It'd be impossible. So listen, you've been more than generous with your time. I mean, we've already been on 50 minutes. This is one of my favorite podcasts. This is unbelievable. David, you've got such an incredible personality. We really appreciate everything, you coming on and telling us about your experiences. But can you let everyone know where they can find you on social media, and if they ever have any questions to shoot you maybe a DM?
Of course, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, hit me up. It's just my name, David Kilgore, on Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, feel free. I'm definitely an open book. I feel like a pretty chill guy in general as well. Shoot me a DM, and definitely love to chat.
I love it. And then we're going to be announcing soon this On Training equity designs partnership, so which I'm really excited about, because it's going to do a lot of good, but I think it's also going to get people out of their comfort zone a little bit with their training. David put together like a really awesome 4-day program, and I mixed in like 3 days of just very simple body weight movements that are going to add value to the run. So we think at the very least, a lot of people aren't going to be able to do the run with us, but at the very least you're going to get in a lot better shape. And go find a building somewhere and have your own race, and try and mentally support, and obviously any donation coming in would be greatly appreciated. It's going to an amazing cause. So Derek, I'm very happy about this. Thanks again, bud. And David, can't thank you enough.
Of course, thank you guys so much. It's been definitely been a pleasure chatting with you guys, and looking forward to hopefully meeting up in person one of these days.
Yeah, I'd love to join you running up that
come on, man,
building,
come
but
out.
Come through, man. Come through.
D,
All
I
right.
thought you were gonna be out in New York that week. Maybe I got the date wrong. Is it October 26th?
Yep, 26.
Is it the 26th?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. I'll try and arrange things because somebody wants me out there on the 22nd.
But Derek, if you come out, just come stay with me, and then
Yeah.
you
Well,
can at least come in and witness.
I'll
you can
video
come in
your
and wit-
training. I'll just watch and as you go by. So.
We'd love to have you. I got the date wrong, but it is the 26th. Cool.
Oh, awesome. Okay, sounds good, guys. I'm looking
right.
forward to it.
All right, guys. Thanks again, David. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.